Welcome back to the deep dive. I have to be honest with you and with everyone listening. Today's stack of research is a little unusual for us.
That's putting it mildly.
Right. We usually tackle tech or history or maybe some hard science like the microbiome or AI. Today, we are looking at a stack of transcripts from a private study group.
And this study group was focused on one thing, a massive, intimidating, and frankly, pretty mysterious text called A Course in Miracles.
It's definitely a departure from our usual fare.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll admit, when I first started reading through these transcripts, my woo-woo alarm went off pretty loudly.
Mine too. That's the first hurdle, isn't it? You see words like miracles, God, atonement, sin, salvation, and you immediately think, okay, this is a sermon.
We're about to get preached at.
Exactly. Or maybe it's some kind of cult recruitment tape, but that's not what's happening here at all, is it?
No, not in the slightest. And that's what makes this so interesting and why we thought it was worth a deep dive. The mission today isn't to convert anyone.
Absolutely not.
We aren't endorsing a religion. We are acting as reporters. We are decoding a philosophy. Because when you actually strip away the biblical terminology, which the study group argues is just a framework, a metaphor.
Just a set of symbols.
Exactly. You're left with this rigorous, almost clinical framework of psychology.
It really does read more like a manual for how the human mind malfunctions than a religious text. It's like a mechanic's guide to the ego.
That's a perfect way to put it. It's metaphysics, sure, but it's grounded in a very practical analysis of why we are so anxious, why we sabotage ourselves, and why happiness is so hard to hold on to.
It's about the architecture of the mind.
The architecture of our own suffering, really.
And that's the hook. That's the central tension that jumped out from these notes. It starts with a question that I think haunts everyone, whether they admit it or not. Why does winning, getting that promotion, buying the car, even just eating the perfect meal, why does it so often feel like we're looking for something else, like it's all just a quest for love?
That is the question. The source material calls it the fundamental confusion. And honestly, once you see the mechanic they're describing, you really can't unsee it.
Okay, so let's get into it. The source opens with this concept of distorted perception, the idea that all our wires are crossed. Walk me through this distinction they make between the miracle impulse and physical instinct.
Right.
Because to me, instinct is just survival, it's biology, but they're saying it's something more complicated.
They are. So the text posits that every human being has an innate, unchangeable drive called the miracle impulse.
Miracle impulse.
Think of this as a kind of homing beacon. It is a constant underlying drive to connect with your source. Now, in the language of the Course, that source is God, or love, or a state of perfect unity.
Okay, let's pause there just to make sure we're keeping this grounded for everyone. If you strip away the theology, they're essentially saying we are hardwired to want connection. We are wired to want to feel home, to feel safe and whole.
Correct. Theoretically, that is our natural state. We crave love and safety because that is what we are at our core. It's not something we have to go out and find. It's the factory setting.
Okay, I'm with you.
But, and this is the huge but, this is the distortion, we are currently experiencing a state of what the Course calls separation. We feel lonely. We feel like we're these isolated bodies. We feel vulnerable.
Right. The human condition.
The human condition. So the mind takes that spiritual craving for home, for unity, and it translates it into a physical craving for stuff.
The wires get crossed. The soul says, I need love, and the brain hears, I need a cheeseburger.
Completely. The Source calls physical instinct a misguided miracle impulse. We're trying to solve a spiritual problem with a physical solution, and it's a category error.
The notes give a really heavy example to illustrate this. Drug addiction, and it's a surprisingly compassionate take. Usually you hear about addiction in terms of, moral failing or purely chemical hooks.
It is deeply compassionate. The Source argues that addiction is so incredibly hard to break because the addict isn't just looking for a chemical reaction. They are subconsciously equating the high, that temporary suspension of pain, that feeling of euphoria. They're equating that feeling with the feeling of being loved by God, with the feeling of returning home.
Wow, that's heavy. So when they're reaching for the substance, the deep underlying impulse isn't, I want to get messed up.
No.
The impulse is, I want to feel safe. I want to feel held. I want the noise in my head to stop.
Exactly. The impulse is holy. The impulse is, I want to return to peace. But the method chosen is destructive. And that's why it's so tragically hard to break. You aren't just fighting a chemical dependency, you're fighting the soul's own misguided attempt to go home.
And the Source says this applies to everything,
Yeah.
not just the big obvious stuff like addiction.
Everything. It applies to the refrigerator.
Oh, the eating example. This one I felt personally. The transcript talks about how eating is rarely just about biology.
Right. I mean, obviously, we need calories to live. That's a given.
Yeah.
But think about the term comfort food. Why do we call it that?
Because it makes us feel better.
But why?
Yeah.
The source argues that when we feel empty emotionally or spiritually, we try to literally fill that void with matter. We are trying to stuff the emptiness with a sandwich or a pint of ice cream.
So we're trying to satisfy a spiritual hunger with physical mass.
And the tragedy, according to the source, is that it's mechanically impossible. You cannot fix an internal non-physical lack with an external physical object. It's like trying to fix a software bug by painting the computer case.
It just doesn't connect.
It doesn't compute. And it creates this endless cycle of seeking and never finding, which just reinforces the original feeling of lack.
This leads perfectly into the Formula One example from the transcripts, which I found fascinating because it's not about addiction or food, it's about success. And I think a lot of high achievers listening will relate to this.
Oh, absolutely. This one is aimed right at the heart of our modern culture. Yeah. The speaker in the transcript, he paints this picture so vividly.
He does.
It's the final lap of a Grand Prix.
Right.
The driver's behind, he's struggling, but he makes this miraculous overtake on the final corner. Passes everyone, wins the championship.
Champagne, trophies, the crowd is going insane, screaming his name. In our culture, that is the summit. That's the peak human experience. You made it. You are the champion.
But the source drills down and asks, what is the specific thought in the driver's mind at that moment of victory? It's not just, I am skilled at operating this machine.
No, it's much bigger than that. It's, I am the best.
It's, I won, therefore I am worthy. Or even deeper, and this is the key, everyone is looking at me. Everyone is screaming my name, therefore I exist, therefore I am loved.
And the source calls this a false pleasure.
A profoundly false pleasure. Because it's conditional. This is the danger. If your sense of being loved or worthy is tied to that gold medal or the corner office or the number of your bank account, what happens next week? What happens when another driver wins?
The worthiness evaporates.
It's gone. You're back to zero. This is why you hear about post-Olympic depression, or why so many people who have it all are often deeply miserable. They're on a treadmill. The source calls this self-deception.
It's a harsh term, self-deception, but it fits, doesn't it?
It does. You're deceiving yourself into thinking that an external event can fundamentally change your internal value.
Yeah.
You're standing on the world stage and asking it, am I good enough yet? And the world might say yes for 5 minutes, but then the crowd goes home, and you're alone again with that same feeling of lack you started with.
So we're constantly confusing the miracle impulse, that pure, simple drive for unconditional love and connection, with the physical instinct to dominate, to win, to consume, to acquire.
We are seeking the right thing in entirely the wrong place. And that futile, exhausting search, according to these texts, is the engine of all human suffering.
Okay, so that's the psychology of now. That explains why I might impulse buy something on Amazon or get way too stressed about my status at work. But the transcripts go so much deeper. They try to explain how we got into this mess in the first place.
Right. The origin story.
This is where we have to pivot to the metaphysics. And I just want to warn the listener, this gets abstract. The source talks about the fall, but it redefines it completely. So just hang in there with us.
It does. And you have to hang in there with this part, because if you don't understand the setup, the proposed solution doesn't make any sense at all. The source introduces a fundamental contrast between two states of being, creation and projection.
This was a major light bulb moment for me reading the notes. Creation versus projection. Can you define creation first? Because they use the word extension a lot, and that's not how we usually think of creation.
Right. Usually we think of making something new. In this philosophy, the natural state of the universe, state of source, or God, is pure extension. The best analogy they use is a fountain.
Okay.
A fountain doesn't decide to give water. It doesn't check who's worthy of getting wet. It doesn't lose anything by flowing. It just overflows because it is, by its nature, abundant. It extends itself effortlessly and constantly.
So it's an outbound flow. It's, I have love, so I extend it. It's not transactional at all.
Zero transaction. There is no lack. There is no need. It's just giving, because giving is what it is. That, they say, is our natural state too.
Okay, so then what is projection? Because in psychology, projection is usually when I'm angry, but I accuse you of being angry.
It's very similar, but on a cosmic, fundamental scale. Projection is what happens when you believe there's a lack. When the fountain believes it's running dry, and you feel a void inside. When you feel empty, you try to get something from the outside world to fill it.
Or you take that inner feeling of ugliness
And you throw it onto the world to get rid of it. You project your fear onto other people. You project your guilt onto situations.
So to put it simply, extension is, I love you because I'm full, and projection is, I need you because I am empty.
That's a perfect summary. And the source details this very specific descent, what they call the 4 steps of distortion, that took us from that natural state of extension to this current painful state of projection.
Let's walk through these steps because they're a little mind-bending. Step 1 is, what's weird, believing we can change creation.
It's the root error, the original mistake. It's this tiny, arrogant belief that our thoughts can actually break reality. The source argues that truth, with a capital T, is unchangeable. You are love. You are safe. You are whole. That is a fact of your being.
It's a constant.
It's a constant. But we have this insane idea that by thinking I am alone or I am unworthy, we have actually become alone and unworthy. We believe our tiny fleeting thought has the power to dismantle the entire structure of the universe.
Which is pretty self-important when you think about it.
It's the ultimate ego trip. And it leads directly to step 2. Believing perfection can become imperfect.
Right. If you believe your dark thoughts are real and powerful, then you have to believe that you, who were supposedly created perfect, have now become corrupted. You believe that something whole can have a hole in it.
And once you believe there's a hole in you, you are in a state of lack. And from that state of lack, you start step 3. Distorting the creation. This is where it really hits our day-to-day lives and relationships. Right?
Yeah, this is the part that feels real.
Because I see a flaw in myself, I start seeing flaws everywhere. I can't look at you anymore and see a perfect creation or a brother. I start seeing you as a threat or a competitor or a tool I can use to fix the hole in me.
You become a means to an end.
You become a mirror for my own brokenness. I project my feeling of being unlovable onto you, and then I see you as unloving. I can't see the light in you because I've convinced myself there's no light left in me.
And that all culminates in step 4, the authority problem. This sounded like a teenage rebellion phase on a cosmic scale.
That's exactly what it is. It's the final defiant belief that we created ourselves.
Wait, explain that. I don't think I created myself. I know I have parents. I know biology exists.
Not biologically, psychologically. It's about your identity. When you say, I am an anxious person, or I am a failure, or even on the flip side, I am a self-made man, you are claiming authorship of your identity. You are saying, God didn't define me. My past didn't define me. I define me.
And usually the definition we give ourselves is pretty crappy, limited, flawed.
Exactly. We define ourselves as limited, vulnerable, and lacking. The source calls this a usurpation. We are trying to be the author of our own reality. And the source argues this is the root of all anxiety, because deep down, we know we aren't qualified for the job.
We're in way over our heads.
We're like a toddler who's somehow gotten into the cockpit of a 747 and locked the door. We're terrified because we've taken control of a life we don't know how to sustain.
This connects directly to the biblical stuff in the transcript. They bring up Adam and Eve, but the interpretation is wildly different from what I learned in Sunday school.
It's totally different. It's crucial to see the Genesis story not as literal history, but as a perfect metaphor for this psychological split we've been talking about.
Specifically, what they call the serpent's lie.
Right. In this reading, the serpent isn't some external demon. The serpent represents the ego. It represents the logic of separation. The lie wasn't eat this piece of fruit. The fundamental lie was you can be separate from unity and still be happy.
It's the belief in duality.
It's the belief in duality. Good versus evil, me versus you, haves and have-nots, winning and losing. The moment you buy into that, you've bought the serpent's lie.
And then the transcript drops this detail about Adam falling asleep that I had never, ever noticed before. And I've read Genesis a few times.
I love this part. It's so subtle and so powerful. The expert in the study group points out that the Bible explicitly says God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam.
Right. That's in the text. I remember that.
But nowhere in the Bible, not in Genesis, not anywhere, does it say he ever woke up.
That gave me chills reading it. It reframes everything.
It's the central premise of A Course in Miracles. The fall of man wasn't getting kicked out of a garden. The fall was falling asleep. And we are still asleep.
So the studio, the traffic outside, my bank account, my worries about next week.
It's all happening inside the dream of a sleeping mind.
That's a lot to process. That's a very big pill to swallow.
It's the Matrix argument, essentially, but with a spiritual dimension. The source says the world we see, with all its wars and sickness and competition and separation, is the nightmare Adam is having. There has been no mass awakening yet.
And Jesus in this context, because obviously the text uses Christian language, so what is his role?
He's not presented as a god to be worshipped in the traditional separate sense. He's presented as the first person inside the dream to become lucid.
To wake up within the dream.
Yes. He looked around and realized, wait a minute, this isn't real. I'm still at home, safe. I'm just dreaming this whole thing. And then, crucially, instead of just waking himself up and leaving the rest of us behind,
He stayed in the dream to try and shake the rest of us awake.
he's the guy in the movie Inception telling you to check your spinning top. He's the symbol of lucidity, the reminder that there is a reality outside this nightmare we're taking so seriously.
Okay. If we accept this premise, just for the sake of continuing this deep dive that we are in a dream state fueled by projection, we need to understand how the machinery of the dream actually works. The source spends a lot of time on the concept of fantasy.
Yes, and again, they don't mean dragons and elves.
No, it's much more mundane and, frankly, much more relatable than that.
They define fantasy as building truth based on false needs. It's the moment-to-moment process by which we construct our daily reality.
Give me the class reunion example from the notes. I think this just nails it. It's so petty, but it's so real.
It's painful how accurate this is. So imagine a guy. He feels like a loser in his real life. He has this inner lack we talked about. So he starts fantasizing about his 20-year high school reunion.
Okay.
He imagines not just going, but buying a brand new Mercedes for the event. He imagines rolling down the window, wearing $500 sunglasses. He plays this whole movie in his head where he sees the high school bully or the girl who dumped him standing there just slack-jawed with envy.
The classic look at me now fantasy.
Exactly. Look at me now. But the source asks a critical question. Where is the pleasure in that fantasy actually coming from? It's not the leather seats. It's not the engine.
It's entirely derived from the imagined envy of other people.
100%. It's a transaction. I need you to feel small so that I can feel big.
Yeah.
I need your envy to fill my lack.
And the source points out exactly why this is a false high.
Several reasons. First, it's a complete hallucination. It hasn't happened and probably won't happen like that. Second, even if it does happen, the classmates might not care. They might be wrapped up in their own lives, or worse, they might think, wow, he's really compensating for something.
Right. It could totally backfire.
But primarily it's false, because you are outsourcing your self-worth to a crowd of people you haven't seen in 2 decades. You are a puppet, and their imagined reaction is pulling your strings.
That's distorted vision. You aren't seeing people. You're seeing props in a play that's all about you.
And that leads directly to the cycle of projection, which the transcript sums up in a really powerful little equation. Inner lack equals outer conflict.
This is the mechanism that just ruins our day-to-day interactions. The sales analogy they used was really helpful here, I thought.
Yes. Let's think about a salesperson, or really anyone asking for something, a boss asking for a report, a spouse asking for a favor. If that salesperson approaches a prospect with the internal script of, I am empty, I need this sale to pay my rent, I need this win to feel successful, what are they projecting?
Neediness, desperation, gimme.
They are projecting theft. Energetically, they are coming to take validation, to take a yes, to fill their own void. And humans are intuitive animals. The prospect feels that pull. They feel the unspoken demand. They feel it as an attack.
Because demanding that someone else fix your internal state is a form of attack.
It is.
Yeah.
And so the prospect backs away. They get defensive, they say no, they feel uncomfortable, and they don't know why. And then the salesperson walks away and says, see, the world is hostile, people are cheap, it's a tough market out there.
But the source argues the salesperson created that rejection.
They projected a world that denies them because they approached it with denial and lack in their own heart.
Okay, so contrast that with the mindset of the whole leader or the whole salesperson.
If you approach that exact same interaction with the internal thought, I am already whole, I am already loved, I have something of value, and I want to extend it to you, to share it, the entire energy flips.
You're not taking, you're giving.
You're offering, you're extending. And usually, the world responds much, much better to an offer than it does to a demand.
But when we're in that need state, we get nasty. The source uses the bathroom analogy, which I laughed at when I read it, but it's actually a perfect model for anger.
It's so visceral and simple. The speaker says, imagine you have a full bladder. You are desperate. You're in an unfamiliar building. You finally find a bathroom, but the door is locked. Someone is in there.
You are immediately furious. You're pounding on the door. You hate the person inside with a white-hot passion.
You think they're the most selfish, inconsiderate person on the planet. But the source asks the crucial question. Where is the anger really coming from? Is it the door? Is it the person inside?
No, if I didn't have to pee, I wouldn't care about the door at all. I'd just walk by.
Exactly. The anger is coming from the internal pressure. The problem isn't the locked door. The problem is your full bladder. The door is just where you're aiming the frustration.
So when I'm screaming at my partner because they didn't text me back or they left the dishes in the sink.
It's not about the dishes. It's about your internal full bladder of insecurity or your fear of being ignored or your need for control. You are looking for a bathroom, a place to get validation or relief, and you found a locked door. But the pressure is yours. You brought it with you to the interaction.
That hits hard. We create so much of our own conflict because we're walking around with this spiritual pressure, just looking for people to relieve it for us.
And when they can't or won't, we attack them. We make them the villain in our movie when they were just a locked door.
Okay, so the diagnosis is pretty bleak. We're asleep, we're projecting lack, we're needy salespeople, and we're angry at locked doors. Let's pivot to the cure. The Force focuses heavily on the word atonement.
It does.
Now, I have to stop you here. When I hear atonement, I think of the movie with Keira Knightley, or I think of religious penance. Whipping yourself. Paying for sins. It has a very heavy, guilty feeling.
And that is exactly the definition the source says we need to unlearn. In this framework, atonement is not punishment. They break the word down in a very specific way.
Atonement?
Atonement. It means reunion. It means correction. It is not about paying for a crime. It is about realizing the crime never actually happened. It's about waking up from the dream and realizing that we never truly separated from source. We just fell asleep and dreamt that we did.
So atonement isn't the act of saying, I'm sorry I was bad. It's the realization, oh, I was never actually bad. I was just confused.
Yes. It is the correction of perception. And to get there, to that correction, the source introduces a very powerful but tricky tool called true denial.
This sounded slippery to me when I read it. Usually denial is a bad word. Denial is not just a river in Egypt. We're told to face reality, not deny it.
Correct. But we have to remember the premise. The world of separation and attack is a nightmare. It's an illusion. So true denial doesn't mean denying the truth. It means denying the power of the illusion.
Okay, give me a practical example. Someone insults me in a meeting. They call me an idiot. My blood starts to boil.
Okay. False denial,
Yeah.
the unhealthy kind we're all familiar with, would be pretending they didn't say it or shoving your anger down into your gut while you force a smile. That just makes you sick.
Right. Repression.
True denial is different. It's looking at the insult, hearing the words, acknowledging your emotional reaction, but then engaging your higher mind to say, this is part of the dream. This person is projecting their own pain. This insult cannot actually hurt my true self because my true self is invulnerable and not defined by their opinion.
You deny the impact. You deny the authority of the insult to define you.
You refuse to make the nightmare real. The source calls this the double-edged sword of defenses.
Right.
Most of our ego's defenses, like attacking back or building a wall of arrogance or playing the victim, actually hurt us in the long run. Why? Because if I build a giant fortress around my heart, what am I admitting?
That there's a giant, scary enemy outside that can actually hurt you.
I am confirming the reality of the threat. But atonement, or true denial, is the only defense that heals. It defends your peace by saying, there is no enemy. There is just a confused brother who is having a hard dream.
This leads to the practical how-to. The source in the transcripts connects this whole process to the Hawaiian practice of Ho'oponopono.
Yes, this idea of total allowance and taking total responsibility.
So walk us through the process described in the notes. I'm in that meeting, I've just been insulted, and I feel that rage coming up. What's step one?
Step one, notice the reaction. Do not suppress it. Do not judge it. Just admit it to yourself. I am furious right now. I feel attacked. You have to be honest about what's happening in the dream.
Okay, I've noticed it. Step two.
Step two, trace it back. Take a breath and realize the anger isn't really coming from your colleague. It's coming from your own belief in lack and vulnerability. It's the locked bathroom dynamic. You are angry because some part of you believes you are an idiot and you're terrified of being exposed.
Right, it hooked into a pre-existing fear.
Exactly. Step three, the prayer or the shift. This is an internal dialogue. The source suggests something along the lines of, I created this script. I dreamt up a colleague who is mean because I secretly believe I deserve punishment. I choose to see this differently. I choose to correct this perception. You take responsibility for the dream.
That's the hard part, isn't it? Taking responsibility for the jerk in the meeting, it feels so unfair.
It feels unfair to the ego, but it is deeply empowering to the spirit. Because if you created the script, you can change it. You're not a victim anymore. And that leads to step 4.
Step 4.
Total allowance. This is the release. You don't fight the feeling. You look at the anger. You look at the fear. You forgive yourself for dreaming it up, and you hand it over to be corrected. Internally, you say, I am sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. You are cleaning the data in your own mind. You allow the emotion to pass through you, rather than grabbing onto it and turning it into a grudge that poisons your whole day.
Speaking of grudges, the source is really, really specific about the concept of regret.
Regret is meaningless. That's a direct quote from the analysis.
Which sounds insane. I mean, shouldn't we feel bad when we screw up? Isn't that how we learn not to do it again?
From the ego's perspective, yes. But the source argues that regret is a trap. Regret just reinforces the belief that the past error was real, powerful, and has permanently stained you. It keeps you stuck in the timeline of the dream, replaying the mistake over and over.
It cements the idea that you are guilty. And if you believe you're guilty, you'll subconsciously seek out punishment.
Precisely. They use an extreme example to make the point. A mother abandoning her child.
Yes. They go right to the edge with this one.
The source says, even in a situation that traumatic, for the child to hold on to the need for the mother to regret it, or to wait their whole life for her to apologize on her deathbed, is ultimately useless for the child's healing.
Why? That seems like a basic human need, to have that wrong acknowledged.
Because it keeps the victim identity trapped in the dream. As long as you need her to apologize, you are affirming that she damaged you beyond repair. You are making your wholeness conditional on her actions. True forgiveness or atonement is realizing that on a spiritual level, no damage was ever done to your eternal self. You don't need her apology to be whole. You are already whole.
That is radical responsibility. It's basically saying you do not need anything or anyone in the world to say sorry for you to be happy.
And that is where true power lies. If you need the world to change for you to be okay, you will never be okay. If you can be okay, regardless of what the world does, you are free.
So let's talk about that power. The next section of the notes is all about reclaiming power. And there's an interesting little correction they make about fear versus awe.
Yes. The transcript discusses how many religious traditions are built on the idea of fearing God. But the expert clarifies that the original sentiment is much closer to awe, like the feeling you get looking at the Grand Canyon or Sight Full of Stars.
Right. You aren't scared the Grand Canyon is going to eat you. You're just amazed by the scale of it.
The source argues that we should not fear the Creator, nor should we fear the teacher, be it Jesus or the Holy Spirit, or your own higher self. Because fear implies inequality. It implies a threat. The source insists that we are equals in nature to our Creator. If you fear the help that's being offered, you will block the help.
This sets up the light in the nightmare analogy, which I think is a brilliant explanation for why so many of us struggle to actually accept love or help when it's offered.
This is such a powerful piece of psychology, the source says. Imagine you are having a terrible nightmare. You are being chased by monsters. You are absolutely terrified.
Okay, I'm with you.
Suddenly, a bright light appears in the dream. In reality, this is someone in the real world turning on your bedroom lamp to wake you up. It's a rescue mission.
Right. It's mom or dad coming to help because you were screaming in your sleep.
But inside the dream, how does the terrified dreamer interpret that sudden bright light?
Oh, they weave it into the story. They don't see it as help.
Never. They think it's the monster's searchlight. They think it's the headlight of a train that's about to hit them. The light, which is actually salvation, makes them more scared.
That's so true. When my alarm goes off in the morning, I often dream that it's a fire alarm or a siren.
Exactly. The lesson is profound. When help or love or a moment of grace comes to us in our real lives, we often reject it because it threatens our ego's identity. If I identify as a victim and someone offers me a genuine way out of my suffering, I might lash out at them because they are threatening my entire worldview.
My whole story.
We have to learn consciously to recognize the light as safety, not as a threat. We have to learn that waking up isn't death to who we are, it's birth.
So the ultimate goal isn't to fix the dream. The goal isn't to get the Mercedes in the dream and win the reunion. The goal is peace.
Peace of mind. That is the only metric for success that the Course recognizes. Not a new car, not a better relationship, just peace. Because if the internal mechanism is broken, a new job is just a new location for the same old nightmare. The source even goes as far as to say that physical illness is often just a shadow cast by this internal lack of peace.
And finally, let's try to wrap our heads around the bridge. This idea of time, this is the part of the notes that I think requires the most suspension of disbelief.
This is definitely the trippiest part of the whole philosophy. The source suggests that atonement isn't something we are building forward brick by brick. It's a bridge that has already been built from the end of time, leading us backward.
Okay, you have to explain that one more time.
We think we are moving forward through time into an uncertain future. We think the script of our life is being written right now with every choice we make. But the source argues that the script is already written. The happy ending, our reunion with unity with God, with love, is already established. It's a done deal.
So what are we doing now?
We are just walking backwards out of the maze. We are rewinding the tape of the dream of separation.
So we think we're exploring a dangerous, unknown territory, but we're actually just walking back home on a path that's already there.
The bridge is already there. We just have to trust it and take the steps.
Okay, let's bring this deep dive in for a landing. We've covered a lot of ground here. To summarize for everyone, we start with a natural craving for love and connection, the miracle impulse.
We then confuse it with worldly things, F1 cars, status, food.
Which causes us to create a nightmare of competition and lack, the dream.
And the only way out is to recognize that it is a dream and choose atonement instead.
At-one-ment, reunion, forgiveness. To stop demanding that the world pay us back for things it never really did to our true selves.
That's the whole thing in a nutshell.
So why does this matter to the listener right now? Maybe they aren't spiritual. Maybe they just have a stressful job and a mortgage, and this all sounds very abstract.
It matters because it provides a new diagnosis for our everyday unhappiness. It explains why success so often feels empty. It explains why we keep having the same fight with our spouse over and over. If you don't fix the internal projector, you will keep watching the same movie, just with different actors.
It offers a practical tool. Next time you feel attacked or angry, you can pause. You can ask, am I angry at the locked door, or is my bladder full?
It gives you your agency back. You stop being a victim of the world, and you start becoming the author of your own peace.
And here's the final provocative thought I want to leave everyone with. It comes from that wild idea about the script already being written.
Okay, let's hear it.
The source suggests that the fall into this nightmare was just a tiny momentary thought that God has already corrected. It happened and was over in an instant. What we're experiencing now is just the echo, the replaying of a recording of a dream that is technically already over.
Right. The war is over. We're just sitting in a theater watching the documentary about it.
So if that's true, if the recording is just playing out and you're sitting there stressing about your meeting tomorrow or your bank account or what someone said to you last week, what are you actually worried about? If the script is written and the ending is guaranteed to be you wake up safely in your bed,
then all the scary parts are just plot twists. They have no real power.
Exactly. If you knew for a fact that the movie ended with the hero safe and sound, would you be so terrified during the chase scene?
You'd just eat your popcorn and watch the show.
You just watch. So try to look at your miracle impulses differently this week. When you feel that craving, ask yourself, are you looking for love in a sandwich? Or can you find it just by pausing, taking a breath, and remembering who you really are?
A beautiful place to end.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.
Take care, everyone.